Hey, so everybody, welcome back to the SWICKtech Leading Business Podcast. This is episode number 2 of the reboot. And today is March 30th, 2020. My name is Eric Clark. I'm a Client Success Associate here at SWICKtech. And joining me today,
Shane Kroening, and I'm also a Client Success Associate at SWICKtech. We do a lot of different things. We'll probably explain more of those to you as we keep rolling through this reboot. Are we, Eric, is this officially season 2? Are we calling this podcast?
Yeah, season 2, episode 2. How exciting.
How exciting.
It's pretty, like I said before, it's really awesome to have someone to do this with on a regular cadence. So I'm just delighted that you're here.
Cool. Yeah, I'm pumped to be here. I'm excited. Despite the crazy, weird remote life that we're living right now due to the coronavirus and everything, it's still fun to kick this off, and it's exciting that we have the tech to do it. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, the position that we're in at SWICKtech in terms of where we're at to be able to be remote is in a really strong position. I was just talking to someone earlier, and they had said, how is your company handling this? What are you guys doing? I'm like, we're great. We're great. Honestly, we've done this before in a much smaller timeline, but we've done it before and handled it just fine then too.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the hardest parts. Well, and we'll get into this more later, but I feel like that's one of the hardest parts for businesses right now is seeing them think they were where they needed to be, and then all of a sudden realizing that they're not. That's gotta be real tough. So yeah, it's really exciting that we're not in that scenario right now.
Totally agree. So our topic of discussion today is working remote COVID-19. And, I think the hashtag, if you guys and gals listening want to hashtag this, it's hashtag what day is it?
Are you as lost as me? I think it's Monday today, but I'm pretty sure last Thursday you thought it was Sunday. So
yeah, I'm incredibly confused about the days. In fact, on a call that we had this morning with some coworkers, I just, instead of saying happy Monday, I just happy day, because it's just another day. It's just a big blur. There's no separation from the weekend or the evening or the morning or anything. And last Thursday, I did post to LinkedIn, I think it's Thursday. Can anybody weigh in? And a lot of people felt the same way, just judging on the reaction from that particular post.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one thing to work remote sometimes. I've done that here and there. I think you've done it before too, where maybe a day a week you spend at home or whatever, but all of a sudden your entire life is just trapped inside of your house, and it's work and life. That becomes weird fast.
Yeah, the lines blur quickly, and you don't realize how much you missed certain routines. So trying to recreate those routines is kind of important. In fact, I went into the office today to get some extra monitors for the webinar that we're going to be doing, and I realized that I really missed my commute. I listened to half a podcast on the way, and I was like, "This is great."
I've stopped listening to podcasts. I haven't listened to any of my regular podcasts because I don't think to do it, because it was always I hop in my car, I start playing a podcast. It's such a habit. I don't even miss the podcast content. I miss just doing that while I'm in the car. Yeah,
it's a good time to learn. What I've done to overcome that now a little bit, and it's not the same, but I put the Alexa speaker in the bathroom, so when I'm getting ready in the morning, brush my teeth and all that stuff, I'm playing back something.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I might have to steal that from you.
It makes it really easy. Alexa, play whatever, right? Audible book, podcast, etc. So that's been a way for me to try to overcome that, but I don't take a half hour to get ready. Notice I'm bald, so it's not going to do my hair or anything. So there's that. In terms of what I've been doing, I know if I look at our show notes here, I've been trying to get outside as much as possible, but that hasn't been great either. The weather's been damp and cold and rainy and gross. So it's just kind of exacerbating the fact that we're stuck indoors at home.
Yeah, it didn't help that was like the whole weekend here either. That was rough, but oh well.
So trying to not make this depressing, we talk about remote work, learning where people are versus where they wish they are. You kind of touched on that. I think that rug got pulled out quickly, and some people were, the clients that we have, even they were headed in a certain direction to get to that place, and it's hard. You can't cover all that ground overnight. You just can't. There's too much structure and gears that are turning slowly, decisions that have to be made on board of directors and things of that nature, where it's really hard to just leapfrog yourself from not working remotely to working 100% remotely.
It is, yeah, and there's a lot that goes into that too, right? It could be a personnel decision, like you said, maybe you have to go back to your board of directors or get approval from leadership, that sort of stuff. A lot of it could be dollars too, talking about the different licensing that you might need or the labor involved in converting your workforce over to a new solution, whether that be, some sort of email migration or standing up Microsoft Teams licenses. That kind of stuff takes time, and you can't just expect your IT staff to flip a magical switch, right? You and I both know that doesn't exist because we work in this industry, but a lot of people are learning that the hard way, or they'll reach out and say, I want to do this. And it's like, okay, well, great, you can do that, but it's going to take these resources, this amount of time, this much money. And then they turn around and they're like, oh, that's not like just readily available.
Well, and
And
think about the backside of that. We do at SWICKtech a lot of training for organizations around the region, continuous training, regular training, where I think any given week we have 1 to 2 people at some other organization doing a training
yeah, at
seminar.
least.
And so when you're done with that migration, how are those folks going to learn to use this new platform that we would normally come and train them on? Trying to teach them virtually into something they haven't used yet is a tricky challenge. So there's just all sorts of variables, but those that might already be in this kind of remote place, some of those theoretical switches really are just switches once you actually are in the cloud. It's a different world. So, there's a wide spectrum of where people fall on that scale. Some might be not capable at all in utilizing maybe VPN. Some might be really far advanced, maybe even more than us, although I'd argue that we're, again, in a strong position. So it's our belief that by eating that dog food, we can help everyone else as
Yeah,
best as possible.
absolutely. I think we should touch on that a little bit more too. Like, how have we been operating remote, right? Like the big buzzword that we keep throwing around is Microsoft Teams. But it's not a buzzword to us, right? It's like, it's our daily life. That's where I am all day, every day, interacting with coworkers, whether that be this podcast, right, where we're recording this in Teams, or a one-on-one chat with someone else, maybe to ask them a quick question, or vice versa, or we're talking through a project, or setting up a meeting to interact with some team members or clients to discuss details. All that's kind of been a part of our daily lives in the office that easily translates into Microsoft Teams. And then on top of that, we've started adding these cool new features that we're using, right? We're doing an all company meeting to kind of have a check-in every week just to get everybody on the same page, making sure people are feeling good about working from home, all that sort of stuff. And we've expanded that into those live events that we're doing with the webinars now. It's crazy how much Microsoft Teams is just like the one-stop shop for working remote. We of course have that VPN connection for some of our resources, but I find myself forgetting to connect to it half of the time, until I like last minute, oh shoot, I need that one thing, so it's really cool to see how powerful of a tool Microsoft Teams has become just for our organization.
Well, we had a podcast that we did 2 weeks ago with Todd McLeese with the Pendio Group, and he talked about over communicating. And I think we've championed that sentiment really, really well with those all company meetings that we're doing twice a week. We've never done all company meetings more than once a quarter in the past. This is strengthening us in a way that we've never even imagined before, in such a interesting way. We're not physically together. So people say social distancing. I think this is physical distancing and social gathering. I see more of the people's faces in our company than I probably would have before, because I make a point to turn the camera on every single time we engage with someone, and I'm just popping into people's chats, and I'm like, forget this. I don't want to type this. I'm just going to talk to them. And so
so
show
much
up.
easier.
Yeah, and it's good to have that human connection. So I think a little bit of that for me as an extrovert is yearning for that face to face. But even some of the introverts that we employ, they've been front and center too with the cameras, and it's been really just an overall very interesting experience to start to try to overcome this. We'll still be present for our customers as well.
Right. We've given people a lot of opportunities to speak up and, say how they're feeling or what's going on with their work or their life. And it's been really cool to be able to go through this with that many other people supporting you. That's super helpful.
I know we did that social post last week with share your office coworkers.
Oh, yeah.
And we, everyone had a picture of their pet or their plant or their fish or whatever it is they have at home. And, that was kind of neat. And so I've really, at some point, either my dog's really going to miss me or I'm really going to miss him, but he's been my office dog. And it's been nice for my wife because she's not dealing with the dog, annoying her all day.
Oh, that's convenient. Yeah, I didn't even think of that part. He just chills in the room with you all day?
Yeah. Yeah, he loves it. He just lays in his little chair and he's just happy to be at my side, I guess. That's kind of fun. Every now and again, I'll give him a pat and it's like, wow, this is a nice way to help me get through the workday, Ed.
Yeah.
Ed.
Man, we've always debated getting dogs or some sort of pet or something. We just never have. We don't really feel like we need it, and we feel selfish if we had a pet to just like leave it because we travel so much and stuff. But yeah, that post for our whole team posting pictures of the pets, I was like, wow, everyone has a pet except for me.
So it's funny, my and we can kind of tangential off here a little bit, but like a cousin of mine, she lived down in Key West and she had a Bernese Mountain Dog mix. So it looked like a Bernese Mountain Dog, but it was kind of just smaller. And that dog went like everywhere with her, in the kayak, on the paddleboard, on hikes to different states, and all over the place. And then it was just like this adventure dog.
That's
I
awesome.
think its name was Trekker, actually. And so it's super fitting. And so to your point, yeah, I think you can get a dog. You can just gotta get the right breed that can go along with you.
Yeah, just get an adventurous dog. I would love a husky, because I think it would force me to go on like runs and stuff to tire it out,
Take up dog sledding.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe a few years you'll see me at the Iditarod.
Yeah, your mustache will be
no
nice.
big deal. Dude, I actually know one of my buddies has an uncle who used to do sled dog racing. He lived up by like Grand Marais on the northern side of Lake Superior.
Mhm.
And we go up and visit him back in, this was 10 plus years ago when we were kids in high school and stuff. And it was so cool. He had 30 dogs, Alaskan Malamutes, I think they're called. So they're not actually huskies, but they look like huskies, but they're more of a dog sledding dog than like your traditional Siberian husky. And they had 30 of them up there, and you could just go outside and just play with all of them, and they'd be running. They had posts so that they could run in like huge circles, and some of them would just run all day long, just keep going.
That's crazy. Really, I couldn't imagine getting on a sled and going into the wilderness with a bunch of dogs. That's crazy.
He did it all the time, and in the summer he had ways to train. They would pull the four-wheeler in gear. He would have them drag him on the four-wheeler while it's in gear. Crazy stuff.
Wow, those are gonna be some pretty neat memories, man. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was super fun. The best ones were probably when he had a litter of puppies when we'd go up there. He built like this hamster wheel for the puppies to start like learning how to run on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Super cool. Who would have thought?
I'll have to dig up some of those pictures sometime.
I want to see the hamster wheel for the dog. I think my dog could use one of those. He's putting on some pounds following my toddler around the house, eating everything she drops.
That's so funny.
But kind of back to the point at hand, how you've been a front runner in this, really boots on the ground with helping our clients. You're working through actively even like onboardings, and we've brought on some new accounts since this has happened. And what is that? What has it been like traversing that?
It's been a little bit of chaos. Fortunately, I feel like we've done a really good job of making it organized chaos. So that's been super helpful, but it's been a little bit of everything, right? So you kind of mentioned it. We're onboarding some new clients right now. And traditionally speaking, I would love to go to a new client in person, sit down with them, have an hour, 2 hour long meeting, talk through everything. This is how this is going to look, all the technical details, on and on. And we can't do that anymore, right? So we're figuring out ways to do a lot of that remote. That's increased some video calls a little bit here and there, but a lot of it's just been voice. And so we've been working through that. And then more importantly, for our existing clients, each one is different, right? So some of them, yeah, maybe they do have Microsoft Teams and they've been able to kind of jump on that tool and use it as a resource for them to be able to go remote. I know a couple of our clients are coming to the Teams webinar that we have this week just to learn a little bit more about how they can use Teams effectively because they already have it. but a lot of our clients don't have teams, right? And so they're figuring out ways to work remote using maybe just a VPN connection back into their office so that they can get access to their files and the network environment that provides. And even other clients are literally picking up their computers and taking them home so that they can have a secure computer at home, right? Because we provide our clients with remote monitoring of their system, as well as, antivirus and foothold detection software. So it's been really critical to be able to offer all of those different solutions to clients and see how they, which version works the best for them. Some of them have been doing a mixture of those. We have a few clients that have, some people didn't have a personal computer to remote into their office computer, so they had to take theirs home, different things like that. And then the real hurdle with all of this, right, is dealing with what your business is doing in all of this, right? So now we've figured out how so-and-so can work from home. Well, now what are they doing? Are we an essential business? Are we not? Because Wisconsin's got the shelter in place order, the safer at home order going on, right? So some of our clients have had to close their doors, unfortunately, for an unforeseen amount of time. Other ones are adjusting, maybe how many staff they have on right now. So we've had to have a lot of those conversations and figure out what we can be doing to help them the best, whether that be figuring out their licensing for different tools and services that they'll have, or disabling some of those accounts if it makes sense to try and help save them money in the short term, all kinds of stuff.
Do you think the one thing that I considered in all of this is like everyone has different home internet. I think by and large, most people have some sort of fiber and some good internet.
You mean coax?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know
Well,
what
yeah, but that's a
most
really good
consumers
point.
have in residential space, because I'm, I've only had Netflix seize up a couple of times late at night, watching that tiger show that's just taking the country by
The
storm.
Tiger King.
I had to jump on and see what that was all up. But for the first time, I was like, oh, it's loading, it's buffering. It's like that's not normal behavior I have 400 megs.
I have not had that problem yet.
And so I just wonder if there's a certain amount of I'm really impressed with the backbone infrastructure from just ISPs across the country in general, that they're handling the load. But then what about the bottlenecks of the various individuals at home and their setups and things like that? It seems like, I don't know that we fielded a lot of those types of tickets. So that's, I think, a positive, right? If we're trying to look at some positives here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think we're seeing that a little bit here and there, right? Where we're having to set some expectations with folks, like, hey, the way that your work environment is set up, you need a pretty decent home internet to be able to remote in and do what you did at work, whether that be someone who's doing CAD work, maybe they're doing a lot of design, architecture, engineering work, or running like CNC machines and stuff, or maybe even just like accessing some sort of ERP tool like Epicor. We've had to set some expectations with people, like, hey, look, if you don't have a strong enough home internet, some of that stuff's going to be painful for a little while you work through this.
Yeah, so you can access it, but maybe it's not like, it would have been if you're physically there. Not to mention the fact that there's a huge influx in video calls. Like, what is that doing to the bandwidth also?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even one of our colleagues posted earlier, we're spinning up licensing for people in Microsoft, and Microsoft's got a banner warning you, hey, we have some crazy high Teams usage volume going on, so it might take 24 hours to license someone to use Microsoft Teams.
Makes sense, I guess. Even on the marketing side for us, and I'm sure I've heard this from others too. If you're going to run an ad on Facebook or something like that, it's going to take a while for them to approve that ad because their staff is remote also. So like their normal procedures and processes have changed too. So what taken 10 minutes is now maybe taking 12 hours in some cases. So that's interesting to consider too. It's affecting everybody in all sorts of ways that we couldn't even imagine what that ripple effect could be, when that ripple effect is still being identified. Like, it's still not fully understood how it's going to impact everything.
Yeah, well, and then we've got some clients, right, who maybe were already on the front line, so to speak, of this type of crisis. And we've got other clients willingly stepping into that environment and doing whatever they can to convert their manufacturing facilities or what have you to be able to help out with this situation, whether that be, helping make ventilator parts or using their supply chain to get masks out to healthcare, all sorts of different stuff. So
you're changing up how they're doing things. You have some of the breweries changing up how they're doing things. Everyone's kind of rising to the occasion in unique ways. It reminds me a little bit of Prohibition, right? Like some of those companies had to find new things to make with the same stuff. How can you overcome that and help?
Yeah,
right.
It actually is Prohibition, right? Some of the liquors brands or some of the huge distilleries are producing hand sanitizers now. It's like, what? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I always think is I wouldn't say silver lining, but close, right? It's a glimmer of hope and humanity when we see that.
Yeah, it shows how much people care, which is huge.
Yeah, it's always bigger than just yourself, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, that's cool. And so like what have we been feeling? What day is it? We've talked about that. How are you staying focused with those blurred lines?
It's been tricky, but I've been doing my best to still work the same hours that I was working, right? Like, start at 6 or 7 in the morning and go till, 3, 4, whatever. And then just step away and I don't even pay attention to work the rest of the night. So that's been helpful to kind of keep those two separate, work and life. But the hardest part for me is figuring out how to stay focused in like my other habits, right? Like I went to the gym every single morning before work. I would get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym. And now I find myself staying up later and sleeping in a little longer because I don't have a gym to go to. So I've been adjusting it so my workout's at the end of my workday. So I've just been making sure like all the little things that I did, I still do them somehow. And whether it be at a different time, I'm just going to have to figure that out, How about you?
Yeah, I think similar. So I'm trying to keep the same hours and, I kind of like that I can just pop in here. Oh, I got to get this thing real quick or whatever and check on that. And I've been doing that. Some of that's on my phone when I kind of quote unquote unplug and step out of the den. But I don't know. It's been interesting. I had to really make sure that this office space that I'm utilizing is comfortable and set up. So I spent a bit of time on the front end perfecting that. So I have a new light and I set up my surround sound speakers and so I don't have to have these earbuds in all day. I can actually let the sound be more ambient and stuff like that. So for me, a lot of the just creating an environment of something that's good for my mental, how I think through things and how I work, which has been kind of neat. So I actually enjoy that a little bit. And then at lunch, go down and hang out with the kids and my wife who's stay at home anyways, and go for a walk if it's nice out around the block, come back and kind of be recharged. So that's been good. But the separation part is hard. That's the tricky part.
Yeah, I agree though. That's really nice that I can like go eat lunch with my wife. That makes it easier to deal with sitting in front of the computer all day rather than interacting with people.
Yeah, I'll ask you this question, Shane. What's the biggest silver lining for you, or one of the things you've realized that you used to take for granted now that you are home? Is that the lunch with your wife, or is there other things?
Oh, I don't miss. It's definitely the lunch with my wife, or just being here, not having to be driving. Like I don't miss the commute at all. Even though we were talking before about how like that was my podcast time. If this was my life, I'm sure I'd figure out. Like if this was permanent, I'd figure out a different way to listen to podcasts and consume that content. But I do not miss having to drive back and forth to the office every day. I'm also like strangely getting into like the whole body weight workout stuff, right? So traditionally my gym visits every day would have been like lifting and stuff, right? Whether that be barbell, dumbbell, etc. But I don't have nearly as much equipment as I do at a gym at home. So I'm figuring out different ways to do body weight workouts. And I'm kind of strangely like really quickly falling in love with it and realizing how, even though like you think you're like a certain amount or you have like a certain strength,
repetition anyways.
but based on like my lifts and stuff or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, I'm doing pretty good at that, whatever it is, squats, bench, what have you. I'm quickly realizing that does not translate to the ability to do like body weight workouts. And I think that I want to, like, long term, I would much rather be able to do like a handstand than.
Yeah, if you're into rock climbing and
Yeah,
mountain biking
exactly.
and things like that, it's a little bit more translatable. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm actually like honestly starting to think like, when this is all said and done, am I gonna need my gym membership? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know a guy that owns a gym in Waukesha, and he had put something outside for him to pick up my old mixer actually because he's starting a podcast. So I gave him some of my older equipment to use, and he was chatting on the way over and said, I see a lot of people starting gyms in their garage from a CrossFit perspective, and I don't see folks going back to the gym in droves. That's yet to be seen how that's going to play out. But the thing that I have not taken for granted, I guess, but that I'm appreciative of that now that I'm home is I get to be there when my daughter wakes up in the morning now. And normally I'd already be gone, before that happens. So that's been
Yeah.
really special for me to have that. That's been cool. So that'll be a hard thing for probably both of us. And obviously my dog is gonna miss having me around, I think. So there'll be some new challenges going back to the office or to readjust again. So there's a lot of
It's gonna be
adjusting
a
that's gonna be
weird
going.
shift.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. Well, enough about like work. What do you do when you're not working nowadays? You mentioned the walks and stuff, but what else are you doing to stay busy?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a huge advocate of outdoors. For those that don't know, an app that I've developed for people to get outside and lower that barrier and actually identify where other people are, so you can stay away from them. So that's interesting. Um, but with that, I have a pretty big connection to our public lands here in the state, and so like if you go to waukeshacounty.gov, they have lands available on their website that you can go to. There's also the Waukesha County Land Conservation um, organization. They have hundreds of acres that you can access, as well as just going to the DNR's website and looking at public properties and state parks and county parks and then managed forest law and all of these different properties. So I've been spending time right now shed hunting, so looking for deer antler sheds that have fallen off with my
Did you
dog.
go out
And
at all this weekend, or was it too
it was rainy.
rainy?
Yeah, it was rainy, so I didn't feel like my daughter would want to come with me, and she doesn't know when she's cold, and so that can get kind of weird. She would just suffer through it like on
Probably
Halloween.
also doesn't care about like the mud and everything else and
Yeah,
being
it's the dog.
wet when she's out there. So that would be a fun disaster for you to have to
I don't
clean
want
up.
like pneumonia in this time of panic and end up at the hospital with something for a kid. So, anyways, this weekend wasn't a great time for that, but every other opportunity I've really taken and taken advantage of that. So I've been spending a lot of time on our state's public properties. And soon, morel mushroom hunting will be a thing. So if you're into fine cuisine, morel mushrooms are a delicacy. I think they go for like $50 a pound. So if you can find a dead elm tree, even in like your local neighborhood, if there's like a patch of some trees, go looking for those things. Are really good to cook up with some steak or something.
Nice.
So that's kind of stuff I'm doing and probably doing more of, which is another blessing in disguise, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Same. We've been trying to get outside and do some walks and stuff and go hiking, but also at the same time avoid large mobs of people at the
Yeah.
parks and stuff because everyone seems to have the same idea. Man, it's crazy. We used to go for walks probably like, I don't know, once a week before all of this, and there's a few people here and there walking their dogs and stuff. Now it's like everybody's poured out onto the sidewalks. It's crazy.
And now you see the dog that's got the great face that probably hasn't been on a walk in the last 5 years. Just
Oh, that's
like
so
trying to keep
sad.
up. So I've seen like all sorts of new dogs and people. I'm like, who are these people? I've never seen them before. We're in this back corner of our subdivision on this private circle, and no one ever comes around here. And so now suddenly people are finding this extra loop in their subdivision and
Yeah.
like seeing all sorts of new faces. So we rode on the sidewalk with chalk and other people are leaving notes as they pass. And so every day in our community, there's a different theme. So like, I think this week you have to put hearts in your windows for the kids. So then the kids, when you go on a walk,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
spot other hearts or different. So there's every week a new thing right now that we're participating in as a community. So that's kind of neat for the kids.
Nice. That is cool. Yeah, we've been playing a lot of games and stuff, cards, cribbage, whatnot. I hear you're into Jackbox, the online games.
It is so much fun. They have several several games. I've only played a handful of them, but the ones that I love the most are Quiplash, which is like this game of quips where you have to be very quick and quick-witted and kind of comical as far as your audience and knowing that audience. And other people vote on your answers, and that's how you win. And then there's TKO, which has a similar concept, which is total t-shirt knockout or something like that, where you actually draw t-shirt designs. And so you'll like draw just pictures, and then you just come up with sayings, and then those get paired, and other people pick the best pairing, and then everyone votes on the shirt that that person picks. So you're contributing the art and the sayings, but as a collective, some of these shirts might get paired up kind of funny. So the things that people put together are kind of silly.
So
And
like
then the
apples
shirts
to
actually
apples, but
purchase. If it's a funny enough shirt, you can buy it, and so it's it's a really interesting concept.
nice. That's cool. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I know you've been. I sent you a link for House Party last Friday, and a couple other folks. House
I'm gonna
Party.
have to check that out. I haven't tried it yet.
Well, so it integrates with Facebook and maybe a different login too. It might not be exclusively Facebook. I know it's its own standalone app, but
Okay.
essentially it's like FaceTime. And so you can have a whole group of people in this application on your smartphone. And you can play like heads up, where you hold something on your head and everyone else sees it, but you don't know what it is and everyone's guessing. There's trivia, there's some drawing games. So you play as a collective party in this. So it's just a way to increase that social engagement. I think there's, like I said, less social separation going on here
Yeah,
than just more physical distancing than anything.
for sure. I am still trying to disconnect a little bit here and now. There though, I still got my books, so I'm reading a little bit, and
Okay.
we've been doing some house projects. I ripped up the back stairs last night, so we're gonna retile those today.
Vicious. We did a kitchen painting project. We had to get all the glue from our wallpaper that was previous in the house up. And so that took way more effort than I anticipated.
Yeah, it always does.
So yeah, but it's done now, and our house is kind of put back together from that perspective. So yeah, we're doing similar things: house projects, cribbage, some of the digital games with friends, and my wife's done like 2 different wine nights with her groups of friends that she has. So it's interesting to see how people are coming together through all this.
Yeah, I've had a lot of Zoom and Teams conferences lately with people at work and people not at work, so it's been kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Is there? So you talk about like disconnecting too. So you're reading. I think for me, just being in in nature is one way that I'm disconnecting, which is kind of how I always try to disconnect anyway. So that's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing as much reading because I'm big into Audible. So short of what Alexa's going to read me in a short amount of time in the morning, I haven't been doing a lot of that. And we have a whole list of house projects. So like the painting was just the start.
Yeah. Well, you got plenty going on with the kiddos and everything when you're not sitting in front of the computer, so I'm sure you're occupied.
It was a tornado over the last week. It was actually, that was a big source of stress, is that just not only is the chaos all this going on, one thing, and then your routines are done, and then suddenly the house is in disarray. You're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm at my breaking point here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we got that project done. We can take a break before we start another one.
Nice. Cool. Well, I think that's all we've got for this week. But we'll be back here in 2 weeks, right? We're doing these episodes every 2 Mondays, and so people will be able to clue in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
I don't
Share
think you and I
hashtag, what day
really.
is it?
What's that?
Share hashtag, what day is it?
Yes.
If you want to stay up to date on things that SWICKtech is doing, we do have our wellness program that we're doing for our employees too, but you feel free to check out SWICKtech.com. We do have a blog that we keep current there, and follow us on social media. We're very active as an organization on our social channels, whether that be Facebook or LinkedIn. There's a lot of happenings that you can kind of follow along with there to see our whole team. So, but thanks everybody for tuning in.